The evacuation shuttle had gone down 3 hours before dawn. Arya dragged herself from the wreckage, ribs screaming with every breath, emergency kit clutched against her chest. The distress beacon blinked weakly in her palm. Active, but who knew when rescue would come? This moon was supposed to be uninhabited, just another way station in the outer colonies, cold and forgettable. She stumbled through the darkness until she found shelter, a shallow cave barely more than an overhang of rock. The temperature was dropping fast. Her thermal suit was torn and the heating elements were dead. All she had was the emergency blanket from the kit, reflective, paper-thin, and wholly inadequate for a night that promised to freeze her solid. Arya wrapped it around herself anyway and tried not to think about the cold. That's when she heard it. A sound. Soft, pitiful, mewling. Her hand went to the plasma cutter at her belt, more reflex than intention. The moon was supposed to be empty, but the sound came again, closer now and unmistakable. Distress calls. Young ones. She turned on her headlamp. 6 pairs of eyes reflected back at her from the darkness. They were small, barely the size of house cats, covered in downy fur that shimmered faintly blue in the lamplight. Their bodies were stocky, with oversized paws and short snouts. They huddled together in the entrance of the cave, shivering violently. One of them, the smallest, tried to take a step forward and collapsed. Arya's breath caught. They were cubs, babies, and they were dying. She scanned the area quickly. No adults, no den, just these 6 abandoned or lost, freezing in the plummeting temperature. She checked her beacon again. Still transmitting. Rescue could be hours away, maybe longer. The cubs stared at her with wide, terrified eyes. Damn it, Arya whispered. She looked down at her blanket. It was meant for one person, barely enough to keep her alive. Sharing it would mean risking hypothermia. The logical choice was clear. Preserve her own body heat, wait for rescue and hope. But humans, she had learned long ago, were not always logical. Arya opened the blanket wide. Come here, she said softly. The cubs didn't move at first. They watched her, uncertain, instinct warning them against the strange creature. But the cold was relentless and desperation overrode fear. One of them, a bold little thing with a white patch on its chest, crept forward. Then another, and another. Within moments, all 6 were pressing against her, burrowing into the folds of the blanket. Their tiny bodies were like ice against her skin, and she gasped at the shock of it. But she wrapped the blanket around them all, tucking the edges in, pulling them close. They were so small. Arya leaned back against the cave wall and held them. Her own body heat began to leach away almost immediately. She could feel the cold creeping into her limbs, a numbness spreading from her fingers and toes. The cubs squirmed against her, whimpering softly, their little claws kneading at her suit. I know, she murmured. I know it's cold. She didn't know if they understood. But she kept talking anyway, kept her voice low and steady because it was all she could give them now. Her teeth chattered. Her vision blurred. The temperature continued to drop, but the cubs began to warm. Slowly, impossibly, their shivering eased. Their breathing steadied. They pressed closer, a tangle of fur and warmth and trust. One of them, the smallest with dark stripes along his back, wriggled his way up through the blanket and onto her shoulder. He climbed higher, clumsy and determined, until he reached the top of her head. Arya felt his weight settle into her hair. She smiled despite herself. Really? The cub, Drex she decided to call him, chirped softly and curled into a ball atop her skull, his tail draped over her forehead like a fuzzy hat. Fine, she whispered. Stay there. The night deepened. Arya's body grew colder. Her thoughts became sluggish, her limbs heavy. She knew the signs of hypothermia. She was walking the edge, but the cubs beneath the blanket were warm now, their small bodies radiating heat as their metabolism kicked in. They slept peacefully, safe in the cocoon she had made. Drex purred softly on her head. Arya closed her eyes. She woke to sunlight and voices. Life signs here. Medic, move! Hands lifted her carefully. Someone was shouting about hypothermia, about frostbite. She felt herself being wrapped in a thermal sheet, felt the sting of a warming IV in her arm. Wait, she croaked. The cubs, we've got them, a voice said. All 6. They're fine. You saved them. Arya turned her head, sluggish, and saw the cubs being carefully gathered by the rescue team. They mewled and protested, looking back toward her. Drex, still on her head, refused to let go until a medic gently pried him free. "These are Kithrin cubs," someone said, awed. "They're a protected species. Critically endangered. There's supposed to be a breeding colony on this moon, but we've never been able to locate it." "She gave them her blanket," another voice said. "In this cold. She should be dead." "Humans," the first voice muttered, something like wonder in their tone. "Of course she did." 3 days later, Arya sat in the medical bay of the rescue ship, recovering. The cubs had been returned to their colony, located at last thanks to the trackers the team had placed. The adults had been frantic, searching for their lost young, but before they left, the rescue team brought Drex to see her one last time. He climbed onto her head immediately, purring like a tiny engine, and refused to leave. Arya laughed, wincing at her still sore ribs. "Your trouble, you know that," Drex chirped. The medic smiled. "The colony matriarch wants to meet you. Apparently Kithrin have long memories. You saved their young. They won't forget." Arya looked down at the 5 other cubs playing at her feet, their blue fur gleaming in the light. "I just shared a blanket," she said quietly. "No," the medic replied. "You shared yourself. That's what humans do." And as Drex settled onto her head once more, Arya thought that maybe, just maybe, that was enough.